Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Planning Development Committee of Monday, March 9th. Members of committee, there are a few agenda changes identified in the package in front of you. I will ask the city clerk to review the changes for today's agenda since its publication.
Mr. Chair, members of committee, members of staff, and the public watching or attending today's meeting. There are just a few agenda changes for today's meeting. In regard to item 5.1, which are delegations regarding report 7.1 on today's agenda, an application to amend the zoning bylaw to permit a 12-story and 26-story residential building containing 395 units at Hanover Road. There are a total of 5 delegations requesting to speak to committee this evening. And Mr. Chair, those are the changes that the clerk's office is aware of at this time.
Thank you very much, City Clerk. Now, are there any additions, changes, or deletions to the agenda? No. Can I? Oh, my apologies. I don't have my screen. Councillor Vicente.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to add a delegation on behalf of the residents who own a home on McLaughlin Road that is in today's agenda, I believe item 11.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that would be proposed delegation item 5.2, and that's in regards to, as Councillor Vicente mentioned, item 11.1, Heritage Board Recommendation HB 004-2020, regarding an intention to designate a property at 9393 McLaughlin Road.
So it's 5.2. Okay, so now I guess Councillor Vicente, you'd like to move a motion with the changes for today's agenda? Moved by Councillor Vicente. All in favor? Carried. Do any members have a declaration of pecuniary interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act for any matter to be considered on today's agenda? No. The clerk will so note for the meeting minutes. Consent agenda. Are there any changes? Would anyone like to add an item or remove an item from the consent agenda? No. Can I get someone to move the consent agenda as printed? Moved by Councillor Bowman. All in favor? Carried. We now go on to our statutory public meeting. And just a reminder to everyone here tonight, this is a public meeting of the Planning and Development Committee held in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act of Ontario. The proposals to be heard at the public meeting are the result of applications made under the Planning Act. These are not proposals of the City of Brampton unless they are specifically identified as city-initiated proposals. We have 4 statutory public meeting items on this evening's agenda, none of which are city proposals. The intent of this public meeting is to hear submissions from the public regarding these proposals. Members of the committee may ask questions for clarification, but will not engage in debate on the proposal at this time. Committee consideration of the proposal will occur at a future meeting with planning staff. Bring forward the final recommendation report on each proposal. The city also has posted on its website, brampton.ca, supporting information documentation for these development applications for public review and reference. We will now proceed to consider this item on this evening's statutory meeting agenda. So our first one, are there people here who would like to hear, would like to have a presentation regarding item 4.1, the Ashley Oaks home on 8331 Heritage Road? Is there anyone here tonight who would like to hear a presentation? Okay, yes. So would you like to hear a presentation from the city? No?
Mr. Chairman, we're fine. I just want to go on the record as an abutting owner if we have an opportune time.
Okay, so I can bring them at this time. Okay, feel free to come step forward. Please state your name for public record. Okay. If there's anyone else who would like to come down and speak to this item, please come forward. And you can sign up with our clerk's office behind you.
You want me to go ahead or do that now?
No. We'll do that after.
Okay.
So just state your name for public record and you have 5 minutes.
Okay. No, I won't take anywhere near that, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Council. I'm simply here tonight. My client owns 8273 Heritage Road in the ownership name of 570458 Ontario Limited. If you look at the plan, it's the 2.7 acres in the southwest corner of that plan. I'm simply here going on record tonight to preserve our rights down the road. I understand this is the first public meeting, and we will see how the staff report goes, but I just want to, as I said, preserve our rights going down the road.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you very much.
Do we need contact, Mr. Clerk? Do you need contact information? Okay, thank you.
Yep, please come forward. Just state your name, please.
Good evening. My name is Murray Cook, C-O-O-K, no E. I live at 8197 Heritage Road, Brampton. And I'd like to start by thanking our councillors, Councillor Michael and Councillor Doug, who 3 years ago, when we were dealing with the Orlando situation, came out on the coldest day of the year, stood in our front yard, and it was so cold that the planner that was working with me at the time, his pen kept freezing, so he couldn't make notes. So on behalf of my family and the Canning family next door, thank you, Councillor Doug and Councillor Michael. We're not objecting to this issue, but we are advising of one thing. And I have talked to staff briefly about this, there is a restriction on the lands on Heritage Road on the east and west side because of the chicken operation across the street. That restriction is quite strong. It's everything from food preparation, overnight accommodation. It's lengthy. I don't need to go through it. Part of this application, we understand, relaxes some of those requirements. We're asking for our home, which is even further away from the chicken operation, to have the same benefit of the relaxation of those requirements. For those that know our property, and I know our two ward councillors do, we're unfortunately trapped by having 700 trucks a day during the Christmas rush from Amazon turning immediately in front of my home, starting up, stopping. The availability of being a home is almost impossible because of the noise level, constant traffic. With the restrictions on our property, we can't use it for anything other than residential. By the way, we've owned it since 1972, so we're not exactly flip artists. We would be glad to work with city staff. We've always found that they've been tried to be as helpful as possible, and of course council members have been very helpful. So we just formally like to advise that whatever the relaxation is for this proposal, the same thing happens to us because we are quite a bit further away from the spreading fields. That restriction on the property makes it effectively useless. So thank you all very much for your time. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Are there no further delegations? No. Can I get a motion then by Councillor Willens to receive the delegations? All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. And is that item adjourned?
Yes,
Yes.
it is. Through you, Mr. Chair, there was a resident that had contacted the clerk's office to delegate on this item. Mark Sabamali, not here.
So we can encourage him to provide any written correspondence after. Okay. Now we go to item 4.2. Is there, are there members here or are there people in the audience that would like to listen to a presentation regarding Sri Ma Kali Amma Mandir Hindu Association, 0 Mayfield Road, west of Gorway Drive, south of Mayfield Road, Ward 10. Is there anyone here who would like to hear a presentation? No. Okay, so I think we can adjourn. Do we need to, a motion to approve staff report moved by Councillor Dillon. All in favor? Carried. Item 4.3, which is application to amend the zoning bylaw and draft plan of subdivision. Daniels HR Corporation, Glenshire and Associates, north side of Bouvard Road, west of Credit View Road, Ward 6. Are there people here who would like to hear a presentation? Going once, twice? No. Okay. So I guess a motion to receive staff report. Motion moved by Councillor Willand. All in favor? Carried, thank you. And now we go to item 4.4. Is there anyone here who would like to hear presentation on item 4.4? No? Okay, so can I get a motion to receive staff report moved by Councillor Singh? All in favor? Carried, thank you. And now we move on to our delegations. Item 5.1, application to amend the zoning bylaw to permit development of 12-story and 26-story residential buildings, 2 and 4 Hannover Road. So we have, for those who are going to be delegating tonight, if you can make your way down and ensure that we have a lineup in the back. And our first person is Mr. Chad Mills, who will be speaking to, so the order I have here is number 1, Chad Mills, number 2, Donnie Young, number 3, Laurie Bosey, number 4, Helen Warner, and number 5, Jeff Kumo. So the first one is Chad Mills. Is he here? No. Okay, so we'll go on to Miss Donnie Young. Please make your way forward. And then after is Miss Laura Bosey. Please, you got 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you for letting me speak to this application. I am in full support of this application. I have been a resident of Brampton, Bramalea since June of 1976 and have been residing at 4 Hanover Road since May of 2012. I moved into Brampton just down the street on Central Park with my husband and boys because we thought it was the greatest place to bring up our boys. The area had ball diamonds, soccer fields, an arena, swimming pool, and curling club. Buses passed our front door and a huge park with a ski hill where we all learned to ski, within walking distance as we only had one car. I watched 2 and 4 Hanover being built. I never thought someday I would be living in one of the buildings. I consider this area a hub. We can walk to catch a bus to go anywhere in Brampton, Mississauga, Vaughan, or Toronto, even to the airport if you don't want to pay the large cost of a taxi. There are schools, churches, a library, retirement residence where you can obtain care after hospital stays, and the Bramalea City Centre, which people are all able to walk to. There is a public school, Catholic school, daycares, and if you sit in our lobby, many children are picked up by school buses or carpools and taken to ethnic schools close by. Yes, the entrance will be busy early in the morning and late afternoon, but I am sure the people who are retired in the buildings and area can work around going out or coming back in these times. The area around the 2 buildings is not a public park, even though I have watched people taking shortcuts to and from the city sidewalk that goes under Queen Street. I also witnessed last year 2 people come out of our pool and walk up towards the condos on Hanover Road. This is private property. The park is across the road. The cost of maintaining the green area must be great, and it isn't being kept up to the standards of years gone by. I think I would rather see 2 nice-looking buildings on the property than the area being run down. Also, the present residents will get some very nice upgrades: indoor pool, a combined tennis basketball court, barbecue areas, and upgraded landscaping with seating, which can be maintained with less expense. It should also be noted that 15% of the total new residential units will be for residents with disabilities. Since 2012, we have had 2 legal applications at the Landlord-Tenant Board, one about a rebate from the city for reduction of taxes given to the owners, and one for over the provincial guidelines. We are facing another one in the coming year for 3% over the guidelines, set by the province. This would make a raise in our rent of 5.2% for 2020. We have a lot of elderly people living here, and this is quite a burden for them. I feel by adding 2 more buildings, more people will share the cost of maintaining the property, and with the redesign of the open spaces, it will be less to keep up. We don't require large children playground areas, as there is Chinguacousy Park and a large area behind Hannover School. Residents now take their wagons on a nice summer night and take a picnic to Ching Park, where the children can also enjoy the large playground, which is being redesigned. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilor Fortuna, hearing on the board, is this specific this delegation to after? Okay. Please, and my apologies if I pronounce your last name incorrectly, and please correct me.
No, you did the last name right. It's Lori Bosey.
Lori Bosey.
Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you for taking the time to listen. I am also a resident at 4 Hanover Road. I've been there since May 2006 and seen many, many changes. I'm representing most of the people from 2 and 4 Hanover. First off, very few of the residents from the property knew about the proposed plan to add 2 more large buildings to the property. Not everyone that lives there now in these 2 buildings saw the public notice about the residents' meeting at the local recreation center in Brampton Guardian. This meeting was held on November 18th, 2018 at the rec center. The public notice about this meeting should have been posted in these buildings before November 18th so that the tenants were fully informed about this matter. Also, the sign showing the proposed plan was put up near the sidewalk and not near a vehicle entrance, so it wasn't easily read, and not many of us go out on the sidewalk. There was nothing posted in our lobby, and if there was again, not many residents go there. I feel that, I have talked to Carmen, but I feel that the letter dated February 12th, 2020 should have been sent to all the residents at 2 and 4 Hanover, not just the housing residents that live around us that are on the city tax roll. Our names are there on the city tax roll. It's under GWL management, so you have our addresses. That needs to be amended, I think. A few of the residents on this property have gone over the original amended plans for the possible rezoning of this property. We have quite a few concerns, questions, and maybe revisions. The biggest issue is the traffic congestion. I understand there's a traffic study done before this was implemented and before Central Parkway was redone to 1 lane. Between the Brampton City buses, school vans, couriers, and commuters, the congestion is already quite bad in the mornings, afternoons, and evenings. With Central Parkway reduced to 1 lane each way, all the way up to Bramley Road from Hanover, there's a longer wait time for vehicles to turn right onto Hanover. And there's also a longer wait for vehicles to turn left into our security gatehouse area. This reduction has also created very bad congestion at Queen Street and Central Parkway, especially in the evening going northbound. Even Brampton Transit is stuck in this area quite a bit. I realize that the city would ideally like us to use the transit as we are near a main line. This is not as feasible as you may think. Many residents in our 2 buildings work shifts or work outside of Brampton. Using the transit takes too long to get to work as there are numerous transfers to make. I do not even use it, never have, and now I work in Brampton, and it takes me 10 minutes to drive there and an hour and a half by bus. Adding more apartments to this property means that many more children and more school buses and school vans will be lining up in Hanover Road or going into our complex. The current elementary school down the road from our buildings is Hanover Public School. They already have 3 portables at the back of the school, and it's full, as per the Peel District School Board. New students would have to be bused to other schools, which could be just as full as Hanover. This will add more vehicular traffic to Hanover Road and surrounding roads. I do not think that these parents would want their younger children to be bused to an alternate school. I believe a further study should be done on traffic in and around the area. Now, regarding the plans, there is little or no handicap parking near the new buildings, and I know there is a minimum required per building. There is no handicap parking near both 2 and 4 Hanover buildings. We are requesting that there will be dedicated handicap parking spaces in the underground garages for disabled tenants. These handicap parking spaces should be wider in width with the appropriate blue and yellow insignia for these spaces. They should be the closest ones to the entry-exit doors in the underground garages. These spots should be allocated first to the disabled tenants who require these spots. The 26-story building has no parking nearby at all. So if somebody's coming to visit who needs handicap, they've got to walk a quarter of a mile. As of today, between the existing two buildings, we are allowed 1.5 vehicles per unit, which is 900 parking spots for 600 units. As per bill, I think it's 108. This will be reduced to 0.5 vehicles per unit, which is 300 parking spaces. It's definitely not enough parking spaces. Are you going to tell existing and future tenants that they can only have one vehicle or less? Quite a few of the tenants on this property now currently have 2 vehicles as they are working in different areas or on shifts. There will be no more security gatehouse apparently, as per the plans and information received from GWLRA. We've been told instead of the security guard there, they will be roving security guards. Our area is not one of the safest areas. Believe me, we've had a lot of drug dealers, stabbings, thefts, and many other problems. The police have many reports that can be reviewed along with the Brampton Fire Department. We definitely need security, but the personnel that they have now on the site are very lax and they don't follow the rules that they're supposed to. Upon further review of the plans, the 2 new buildings do not have a service area where the garbage and or recycling can be picked up and where the tenants use for moving in and out. With the amount of new apartment units, only 1 children's play place has been designated for 4 large buildings. This is certainly not enough for the hundreds of children that will be living there. There needs to be at least 1 main children's play area on the east side of the property and another one on the west. I don't expect parents to take their children
Sorry,
to Chinguzi.
just as process, because we're passing the 5 minutes, so
Oh, sorry.
Councillor Fortini is moving more time, so go ahead.
Oh, thank you. It's not an option for most parents to take their younger children to Chinguzi. There's a large green area proposed between 2 and 4 Hannover roads in the apartments. Children would be using that as a play area, but there are laneways all the way around this area. That is definitely a big safety concern. I'm not even going to go on that one. I have a grandfathered lease that says I have a fitness room and a sauna. There's nothing there now. And the reduction, I think I missed one. Yeah, there doesn't seem to be adequate access for emergency vehicles to enter this property. The driveways now are too narrow. Fire trucks have to come in through the out exit and over the curb. We should get another access onto Hanover Road. There are also no areas noted for use of barbecues and picnic tables on the plans. Each building should have a higher bench fairly close to the front doors of each building so that people can sit if they need to, waiting for a ride or for trans help. And there's quite a bit of trans help going through our buildings. There's no access to the walkway behind 4 Hanover that goes in the roundabout to Bramley City Centre. This is needed, especially for people going shopping or walking to the bus terminal. Somebody also mentioned that we can go parking at Bramley City Centre. I don't think that's feasible. And we were told there would be no fencing around our property anymore. I don't think so. I'd also like to speak about the concern for the tax-paying residents that live around us. 2 additional rental buildings will depreciate the residents, and it will. I thank you very much for your time and look forward to a further meeting with Investors Group and or Schnarr and Associates, which I'd like to set up tonight if I could. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next delegation, please come forward, is Ms. Helen Warner.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman and members of council, I live across the road from these proposed buildings, and at the last annual meeting of our condo association, a committee was formed to explore and understand what was going on across the road. And I was chosen as the chairman of the committee, and tonight we have asked Richard Gauthier, one of the members of our committee, to represent us. Richard?
Thank you, Ellen. Let me begin, Mr. Chairman, by presenting our delegation. A number of the residents are here tonight. Maybe I can ask them to stand. Okay, they're over here. Okay. Thank you. As Ellen mentioned, we are residents of Carriage Walk South, a condominium complex located across the street from 2 and 4 Hanover. I would like to quickly mention 3 points that will help you understand the recommendations that we will be making later on. The first point, The proposed building C will be constructed very close to the other two existing buildings. The proposed building C provides a distance of approximately 27 meters with 2 Hanover and 34 meters with 4 Hanover. Now, 27 meters, approximately 100 feet, may appear to be a decent distance, but in relation to the height of the existing buildings and the proposed 26-story building C, it really is very close. Brampton City's official plan speaks to the need to determine the potential impacts arising from tall building development. As well, it states that in the overriding design, due consideration shall be given to a number of aspects, including, among others, the distance between buildings. So first point, the proximity of the buildings. Second point is more environmental in nature. Throughout the years, we've been there for quite a few years, and throughout this process, it has come to our attention that the building management of 2 and 4 Hanover has worsened over time. For example, cockroach infestation, badly maintained road entrance, garbage along the fences, and grocery store carts left on the property. The city has already received letters from residents to this effect. And the grocery store carts are still on the property. They're just taking them and they put them behind the property, along with some old tires and other junk that's there. I have pictures if anyone is interested. Now, this might not be considered a planning matter as it relates to how the property is managed. But since the owners, which are the ones ultimately responsible for the poor state of maintenance of the existing buildings, are the same owners who now want to build 2 more buildings on the property, well, it becomes an issue. The administrators of our condominium complex at Carriage Walk South, just across the street, work hard to maintain an excellent surrounding to the property. We are proud of the neighborhood that we live in. It is known that a positive environment has major social impacts, whether it is in terms of safety and security, social behavior, or developing a sense of belonging. So second point, the way the property is being maintained at the moment. Third point is related to safety. At the westerly end of 2 and 4 Hanover property, at the property line of 2 and 4 Hanover, there is a crosswalk that many people, students, and children use to go to the Brampton City Center to the school. Previous delegates have mentioned that, okay? Now, that there is a crosswalk there is a good thing. But the fact that there is need for a crosswalk there gives you an indication of the amount of foot traffic going across Hanover at that property line. Given these points, we would like to make the following comments. We see the secondary vehicular access point to the property from Hanover Drive as a positive change in the new proposal. It is not clear to us whether it is a 2-way access point allowing cars to exit and enter the property. We think it should allow both entrance and exit, but the Planning and Development Committee should have a look at the safest and best way to deal with traffic going in and out of the property. If given more time at the end, I can talk more on this point. Second comment, we think both vehicular entrances to the property should have security gates, with the main entrance keeping the gatehouse. I'm sure that eliminating the gatehouse is a cost saver, but it comes back to what I mentioned earlier in terms of what kind of property environment you want. Third point, we would like to see in the proposal a stronger commitment from the owners to maintaining, and the emphasis here is on maintaining, a safe and clean environment on the property, such as proper fencing around the property, well-lit parking lot, well-kept grounds, etc. Fourth point, the construction period will be very disruptive and will have an impact not only on the residents in the buildings, but also on the surrounding neighborhood. Because of the trucks and large equipment, it is also a period that requires increased safety measures. We would like to be kept informed of the methods used to keep Hanover Street clear and clean, as well as measures taken to ensure everyone's safety during this period. Fifth comment, we realize that the proposed design makes full use of the maximum density allowed under the city's Queen Street Corridor secondary plan. In fact, the proposed density is marginally higher than what is allowed. Now, given the proximity of the proposed building C to the other two existing buildings, we ask that the Planning and Development Committee consider the impact that the height of the building C has on the overall design. The height of a building and its overall mass are the most important factors in determining what impact the building will have on its immediate surroundings. This includes how it is perceived from the street and by the neighbors. In this case, the close proximity of the three buildings together, the two existing ones plus the proposed building C, will create a greater sense of mass. We would like to see a building C that is reduced in height. Finally, we wish to thank Pat Fortini for taking the time to meet with us and answering our questions, as well as thank you to the Planning and Development Committee for the opportunity to express our views.
Thank you very much. Next is Mr. Jeff Kumo.
Yes, my name is Jeff Como, and again, thank you for letting me speak tonight. I agree with everything that's been said. Just I personally don't agree with the proposal for like safety reasons and stuff like my fellow person has said. And I also think the area is already crowded enough. I think there's already enough people on that space of land. But one thing a couple points I want to highlight is first, I was a report they did last meeting back in November 2018, where they said having these two buildings. Sorry, let me just back up. I literally adjacent to these proposal. I'm in the subdivision at 7 Hunters Cove, so this would have a direct impact on me if it's traffic, people, whatever. So a couple years ago, they put in a proposal saying there won't be any shadowing effects, so effects of the sun. I personally don't agree with how they got to that because none of the residents in that neighborhood were consulted on that report. I didn't get any knock at the door, myself or my wife. No one came into my house, let's say, looked through my window type of thing. So just when you guys read that report, just take it with a grain of salt and take into consideration that no one was consulted on that report. So just be mindful with that. And my second point is just the traffic. I definitely concerned with that. And I think the first speaker even mentioned this too. Right now, by you guys making Central Park a one-lane road, where it was a two-lane road, traffic heading north on Central Park is backing up on Queen Street. Cars can't successfully clear that intersection, and the lights has gone red, and they're stuck in the intersection. So my question is to you guys knew about this, why would you guys make Central Park a one-lane road versus a two-lane road? So those are my 2 points I wanted to bring up, the traffic and the effects of the shadowing and stuff. And I echo with the other speakers about safety too, and the garbage and more people too. So thank you again for taking this time to let me speak. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, as I see there's no further delegations, I see a couple members of the committee who would like to run the board. Sorry, yeah, and I think at this time we'll bring up the report 7.1. And there is, report 7.1, so I see Councillor Fortini's on the board.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and just want to thank everyone for coming. Laurie, thank you for meeting me that night with some of your residents and concerns. And Helen, thank you for opening up your house. I know we met quite a few times at your home and all, and with the residents. So I just want to ask staff some questions about, I heard something about fencing around the property.
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, there is the proposal is right now to remove the fencing, but this is something that we can look at more closely at the site plan approval stage or the detailed design stage. So at this stage, yes, they're proposing to remove the fencing along the perimeter of the property.
All around?
Yes, there's a chain link fence around the property. So it's really a site plan matter at this stage?
It's a site plan, that's what, so I see, okay. And something to do with parking, they're allowed to park in the mall, Raleigh City Center?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So the applicant is proposing a reduction in parking for the site. This is a site that is close to public transit. There's the priority bus lane, the Zoom bus along Queen Street. There's a local bus service along Hanover and Central Park. There's the Brampton, there's a transit terminal at Bramalea. So this is an ideal area where, you know, we can look at the reduction of parking. So there is a proposed reduction, yes, but there are other opportunities to move around the city and the region.
That's not what I asked. I asked, are they allowed to park for this, are they allowed to park at the mall?
Oh, at the,
Raleigh City Center, I know this is Zoom, but I live around there too, around the corner. But
I can't speak to whether they will allow parking at Bramalea City Center. That would be a private arrangement between the parties,
yeah, that's
but
what I
I'm
thought.
not aware of any.
Okay.
any
So,
arrangement.
I know some residents were complaining they didn't receive letters, and most of them on the building too in Hanover. Is there a reason why certain people did and certain people didn't receive them?
So the people that would have received the sort of notice that this meeting was happening this evening would be people that had written correspondence to myself or to the clerk's department, or it would be people that made representation at the public meeting. Those are the people that would be getting notice about this meeting tonight. At the public meeting, notice was given to owners of property within 240 meters of the property.
So 240, that's what, so up to 240 meters, everyone received the letters besides the people Hanover, 2 and 4. But the people behind all of them received it. That's what I'm trying to get at. Because our bylaw states you have to send it 240 meters to the residents.
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes. So the official plan speaks to giving notice for a public meeting for people within 200, for owners within 240 meters of the property.
One of the residents talked about the school and the traffic study, or, you know, is that part of the site plan? When they do site plan, we have to do a new traffic study because now it used to be 2 lanes and now it's down to 1 lane with a bike lane?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So I'm sorry, can you please
So
repeat the question?
prove this, we need a traffic study. Is a traffic study now going to be redone part of when it comes to the permits and site plans, or it has to be done now before we approve this?
So through you, Mr. Chair. So the traffic study has been completed and approved by city staff on this proposal, and it shows that the intersections will operate at acceptable levels. With respect to the reduction of the 1 lane on Central Park Drive, that was part of the city's active transportation plan, so there was an expectation that a bike lane would be on that road. And it was also implemented as part of the city's resurfacing program.
Okay.
So that that was intended.
Okay. And,
Through the chair, as part of the site plan, we would be looking at the more detailed aspects of traffic and the access arrangements and how those will properly function. So the rezoning, you look at the general, whether or not there's enough traffic capacity in the surrounding road network, but at site plan, we look at more of the details as far as accesses, et cetera.
now with all these extra condos coming in, or rentals, whatever we want to call them, the school, will they be okay now with the growth?
So through you, Mr. Chair, the traffic study indicated that the roads would be, I'm sorry, is that what you were asking?
Well,
The
for
roads would be.
the capacity of the school for
Oh,
students.
sorry, the capacity of the school, I'm sorry. So the capacity of the schools, so this application was circulated to the school boards, and the school boards did not have any issues with the application, the number of students that it would generate. Also, generally, the school boards don't build schools to maximum capacity because there's such a fluctuation in the in the student enrollment. So they make use of portables, either using more portables or removing portables. But they're never, from what I understand, designed to maximum capacity.
Okay. And part of the handicaps and playgrounds and the gatehouse, that's part of the fire trucks for the roof. That will be part of the site plan?
That's
Or the
correct.
next step
That'll
before
be
we
looked
have
at
to make-
through the detailed design through the site plan application.
I'm a little bit disappointed about the fencing because I did ask staff and nobody said, no, we never heard of it. Now you're saying it's part of the application and it wasn't used. I can't remember who sent me the email. And I told the residents I know nothing about the fencing. Now all of a sudden it looks like it's part of it. So the benches and stuff. So I know I met with some of the residents and so I'd like to ask for, I did talk to the planner to have a meeting with all the residents to go through some concerns they have and, you know, before an appeal gets done. And, you know, everyone tries to avoid it. We do need more density. It's hard for people to find any place to live in Brampton. So, you know, I'm glad some of the people are in support of it and they come to certain terms, but we have to also accommodate some of the residents. And I think I did talk to you, maybe Colin, we could have a meeting. I don't know if you could set it up tonight, as Laurie asked, or you have to send an email because you have to talk to the other, I guess, the investing group. I don't know what you suggest.
Okay, so
Well,
we need a
Mr.
motion,
Delegation.
so Councilor Fortini is adding planner Colin Chung from Glenchnar and Associates. All in favor of adding delegation? Carried. Thank you very much.
My name is Colin Chung, Glenchnar and Associates, here on behalf of the applicant, GWL. We've heard the comments from the public and the residents. Thank you, and we'd be delighted to set up a meeting. We do have a protocol. We can't just set up a meeting with the residents here. Make sure that we have a meeting date that would accommodate as many of the tenants and the residents possible. So in the next couple of weeks, we'll do our best efforts to set that up. In the meantime, I will talk to the residents who came today, make sure that I know their available date, so that that becomes a priority for us to meet. I do, though, Mr. Chairman, want to clarify a few things, maybe add some additional information for clarity. Traffic is a very significant issue for any development in Brampton, particularly infill development like this. Yes, when the application was originally filed 2 years ago, there was a traffic impact study that was undertaken for the proposal. At that time, Central Parkway was 2 lanes, both ways, so 4 lanes total. We did come to realize, as part of the application before we came tonight, that the city had reduced the number of travel lanes on Central Parkway to 2 lanes. We took it upon ourselves, with discussion with city staff, to do an addendum traffic impact study based on those 2 lanes. That study was submitted, prepared by our technical expert, traffic expert, submitted to the city, reviewed by the experts here, and the city said, based on that addendum, there are no adverse traffic impact for this proposal. I'd be happy to share that report to the residents because I don't want to be in a position to talk about hearsay. I'm here in a position to talk about technical information and valid information. So I'd be happy to share it. And I'd be happy to share it before the resident meeting that we're going to organize. Urban design, fencing, pedestrian flow. I just want to say this, Mr. Chairman. In 2 years, this proposal has been scrutinized by not only Brampton staff and your experts, but it also undergone your city's urban design review panel. As you know, that panel is a consolidation of experts from the GTA who provide their free time to scrutinize and review proposals such as this. Every aspect of their suggestions have been reflected in the proposal before you tonight for endorsement. I understand the residents. You know, you want to be part of a process, and when you're not being notified and you're not aware, I know it does upset people, and I get it. But I should also, just for the record, we initiated as an applicant back in October 2018 and noticed to all the tenants at 2 and 4 Hannover, before we engaged any type of public process with the city, a private open house at 2 and 4 Hannover with the tenants to make sure they understood the proposal before it became public. And I get it. Some people missed that notice, some people missed that invite, and people are here tonight expressing their There are comments and concerns, and that's valid, but I just want to make it for the record, we took it upon ourselves to initiate that open house. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
This meeting, done within the next couple of weeks at the most. I'm very disappointed, like on the main street, why the developer wants to remove a fence. It's a safety issue. You got dogs, you got little kids running around, which I felt like I'm misleading them because I always can hear nothing about it until now. It's went from one story to another. So that is a very big concern for me. On Main Street, you go into the ramp into Brampton City Center, you have a road, and when you're removing a fence when the little kids are there to the playground, I don't think so. So I'm gonna wait for your email. I got Lori's number, I got the residents' all numbers, and maybe we could have it in one of the buildings, or I'll rent one of the centers, Terry Miller or the Ski Chalet, but we should gotta sit down within the next 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Okay?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, we'd be happy to actually have that meeting at the site, which is most convenient to the residents, as opposed to somewhere else. So we'd be happy to travel to the site. Through you, Mr. Chairman, the question about fencing, I just want to clarify, the fencing issue, I think it'd probably be prudent for city staff who are dealing with urban design to be part of that discussion, because as much as fencing is about privacy and safety, there's also urban design component to that. We want to make sure that this site is pedestrian friendly and has access and convenience to the areas around the outside of this site, as opposed to burying it into internal site with fencing. So there's a combination, and there's potentially maybe a balance between safety and fencing and pedestrian connectivity. And so we don't want to lose the opportunity to ensure that there's pedestrian connectivity of synergy of land uses surrounding this site. So
So urban design is asking to remove this?
there's certain areas that urban design feel should be open for pedestrian connection as opposed to fencing the entire site.
And I get that. So we can leave openings, but to remove it all, I just feel, in my situation where I'm saying, I misled them. Because I've asked so many times about this fencing, every answer I receive, we don't know nothing about it. Now it's coming up, that's being removed. So how do I feel in front of these people when I've been asking? So that's where you start losing a little bit of the trust. And so that's
Well,
why
this
we
is an
have to
issue
have
that
the
Mr.
meeting.
Chairman first time came to me tonight. Nobody broached me about this issue until I heard it from the residents tonight.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so
no,
I don't want to be putting.
I'm not blaming you.
Yeah, no, but I don't want to be putting blame on somebody when the issue did not come forward until tonight. We've worked with your staff, we worked with the residents that we felt were participating in this process, and now we have issue with fencing that we know today confidently we'll deal with it. We have an issue that we can deal with through, would it be a meeting with the residents or through subsequent site plan application stage. So I'm not concerned about that process.
Thank you, and I agree, because I'm gonna meet with urban design. When you have a 6-lane road, the car's doing 80 kilometers an hour, you're taking a fence away when little kids are playing with a soccer ball, right in a park, right, and the park, actually, if you look at the drawing, it's right on Queen Street, close to Queen. So, where's it, so, okay, so we'll wait for the meeting, I'll wait for your call, and I'll contact the residents and whatever you want to have the meeting, and Charmaine will be there too, and we'll have a meeting with everyone, hoping to come to an agreement. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So just a clarification, Councilor Fortini, I will go on to Councilor Williams. You did not move a motion to defer this or anything?
No, not preferred. We're gonna have a meeting because the residents. Sorry. Meeting with the residents, they want to come to a
Okay, that's fine,
conclusion.
but right now, I just wanted to be clear, I wasn't sure where that was going. Councilor Williams.
Just a motion to have, to meet. We are gonna be meeting. If I need a motion, Mr. Clerk?
Well, I guess it depends. Are you, I don't know what your intentions are
My
today.
intention is for them, the residents are coming to certain terms, they're kind of okay with it, but they also want certain things. So
Well,
before,
okay, Councilor Fortini, right now, the
So-
discussion between you and the residents, and right now, there's no motion on the floor, so I will allow
I'm
Councilor
asking
Williams.
the clerk, do I need a motion, yes or no?
So I'll pass it to Councilor Williams, and why don't you speak to the city clerk on what you should do?
I need one?
Councilor Williams,
He
please.
said yes.
Thank you. Through the chair, Colin, since you're here, I might as well ask you some questions first. So I know, as it's been discussed before about the handicap parking, will you be making plans plans, or will the developer be making plans for the handicap parking to address that issue, not just on the grounds, but also underground?
We have, through Mr. Chairman, we are obligated to meet the province's Accessibility Act. We have so far on the plan showing 23 accessibility parking spots. The issue raised by the residents tonight is, are they conveniently located that would be beneficial to those people who need them? Yes, we can address that. I feel confident that we can address that. I will be happy to have that discussion with the residents when we meet and implement it through upcoming site plan application process, which is the process to which you deal with those details.
Perfect.
So I'm not concerned about that comment.
Well, and that's good to hear. I know some of the residents were concerned about having, as it is right now, the parking is quite a distance, and it's difficult to access the front door when you need handicap parking spaces, and then also underground, making sure there's parking spaces close to the entrances. So the security at the front gates has been mentioned a few times. I know that when you go into other areas that have apartments and condos, there's security in the base of the building on site. Is that going to be the new plan, and is that an option to have security on the main floor?
When we met with the residents at the 2018 open house, that is one of the issues that the residents raise, is how are the security on the site with the redevelopment going to be maintained or improved? And we've explored different ways of managing security. Would it be camera systems or security guards or gates? We haven't determined the best way to implement that. It is an issue for also the landlord as well. Obviously, when you have a site that you're going to invest in, you want to make sure that the site is secure and is maintained. So I speak for the applicant and the landlord and the owner that they welcome the discussion on what's the best way to secure the site. So yes, through you, Mr. Chairman, security is an important issue. We're going to have to figure out what's the best way, because not one approach is the best approach for every site, and we know that. What I know today is my I guess, limited monitoring or observation of security that exists today. I don't think it works. I don't think it's the best way to secure this site, the current conditions. So we need to figure out collectively what's the best security that can be implemented. So we'll have that discussion with the residents.
And that's good to hear. I know for myself, going to visit people that live in that building, you can just say, I'm going to pick up somebody and just drive in. So it's I find the security as it is right now is a bit of concern. However, when you have condos and buildings that have security on the main floor, making sure they're checking and questioning who's coming in and so on, it seems to help many of the residents in other buildings feel a little bit more secure. So hopefully that's the direction or the conversation and how it will go.
Yeah.
My question is about security again. On the west side of the building, there is that underpass that is heavily used, but it's also not a very secure spot. How is the building corporation going to address that issue to make that underpass to the Brampton City Center feel a lot more secure?
Yeah. Through you, Mr. Chairman, one of the things that we've tried to implement through the design and the building, I'm going to call it the Building D, which is the smaller 12-story building on Hanover. Part of the discussion with the Urban Design Review Panel and with City Urban Design was utilizing that area and building on that area, which is vacant today, to put eyes on the street. So from a SEPTIP perspective, the community design for safety design perspective, eyes on that area of the underpass was a very important component of safety implementation. That doesn't mean that that's going to solve everything. So one of the things that we are challenged by is what can be done to augment the built form there to make it even more safer for people who are going to be utilizing that. I wish, Mr. Chairman, through you, we had a solid answer to you. We really don't. But we know that today, working with City Urban Design, with the Design Review Panel, and with the SEPTED, that having eyes on the street with that built form being part of the project at that location does help to make sure that when there's people who are watching, it's less prone that you're going to have incidents.
So you're saying because of where the building's gonna be located, some of the apartments will be able to have full access view of that underpass part? And the hope is that when people are there watching, then it will deter any kind of criminal behavior.
And through you, Mr. Chairman, it's not the solution, but it does work towards making it a better situation.
Okay. So with, some of the residents were asking about the new buildings. If the opportunity was for some of the current residents living in the other buildings there, would they have first pick or opportunity to move into the newer sides?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I don't know if I can actually say that it's a first pick, but I think the opportunity for the existing residents of 2 and 4 Hanover to maintain their current lifestyle by transferring over, absolutely they'll have an opportunity for that. That is the purpose of trying to create this redevelopment, is to ensure that there's viability and longevity to this site. And so existing tenants will have an opportunity to reside in the new project if it's deemed approvable by the City Council.
Okay. So the grounds that are available, there is a reduction of green space. I think it's pretty obvious if we're going to be putting some new buildings. How is the plan going to address some of the concerns that the green space is getting taken away, and what is being put in there as a substitute? So the pool is going to be removed, but it's going to be covered. Like what kind of amenities? And then I've heard that the basketball net, or there is a park, but it will be on the west side of the building. And that side of the building is elevated from Queen Street, is that correct?
Yeah, I'm not sure how much is elevated through, Mr. Chairman, but I can say this. This has been a very lengthy discussion with the tenants at 2 and 4 Hanover from the outset of this project. It's basically looking at the existing condition of green space and the recreational space and how well utilized those spaces are today. They may have been a great idea when the inception of this project many years ago, but society changes, demographics change, their preference change. And what we heard from the residents in our open house, when we actually broached this subject, was they welcomed the changes to the site to look at updating the recreational function and the use in the green space around this site. One of the things that they've asked us to do as well as part of this redevelopment was the parking layout does not work. Can you figure out a way to make a better functioning parking layout and utilize the green space around it? So one of the things that we did, working with the residents in the city, was trying to figure out what other recreational components can be incorporated into this project that would be better used. So we have a multi-use course. So it's not just about using it for basketball, but you can use it for other sport activities. There are outdoor passive space that people can leisure. That's one of the things that we want to create that would be safe for the tenants and the residents in the future. The tenants and the residents said to us when we had the open house that they didn't feel safe to be out there. So we were trying to design this site to be more safe prone. I'm not sure if you look at the green space that's being proposed that we think could be utilized and benefiting the tenants versus the existing green space that may be greater than what's being proposed, that's underutilized. So I think that the difference is you may have less green space, but I do feel, my opinion is that we have a better functioning and utilized green space being proposed today. That doesn't mean it's perfect. That's why we say we're going to sit down with the residents, share with them our idea, and we will see if there's a way to tweak it if necessary to make it better.
Okay, thank you. So I just have a few questions through the chair to some of the staff. Can you explain what the plans are for the Queen Street corridor is and what Morguard might be having in mind for the development of that space across the street from 2 and 4 Hannover?
Through the chair. Right now, while there's no current development applications in with us for the redevelopment of the Morguard site, well, actually, they did do a pre-consultation a number of years ago and there's been discussion since then on potential intensification on that site, given its proximity to the transit corridor, the plans for bus rapid transit on Queen Street. So There are issues related to flooding that need to be worked out for that, so part of the site is within a floodplain, but there is some interest by the owner as demonstrated by the submission of their pre-consultation application for intensification there, but there's no current applications to actually rezone the site.
Okay. I know with the 2040 vision, there's been concepts with the Brampton City Center area, and it looks like the direction is to go high-rise, is to intensify quite significantly. And you mentioned the BRT line. Can you explain, or if you have an idea, what that will look like and possible timelines for the transit? I don't know, we don't have anybody for transit here, but I'm just wanting to get a sense of what is to come on the Queen Street corridor for transit.
Through the chair, while I don't have details about the timing, generally the intent from a planning perspective is to make it more pedestrian-friendly, transit-oriented corridor. So that would include streetscape improvements, the installation of transit or bus rapid transit. So that's generally the vision for the area. And yes, the 2040 vision does show potential redevelopment of Brampton City Center and the overall area as well.
And can you speak to the Queen Street Precinct Plan? I keep getting the words wrong. There are some plans that are happening with the Precinct Plan. If you can just kind of describe what the city is doing for those potential developments and how it's going to make it easier, I think.
Well, the precinct plan generally is looking at the area between the 410 and downtown. Again, this is an area that's long been identified in our planning policies as being appropriate for intensification and more urban development, generally transforming from the or the car-oriented, automobile-dominated commercial landscape there is now to more high-density development. And as part of that, one of the projects that was approved by Council in January was to look at community planning permit system for that area to identify clearly what the vision is and then have a more streamlined approval process. Now that applies, this area is just to the west or to the east of that community planning or the Queen Street precinct. But again, the vision is generally the same as far as the type of development we want to see in that area.
So the definite vision moving forward is to see increased intensification along Queen Street, a higher transit order for the along Queen Street, and so this area is not going to look the same in another 15, 20 years. It's going to be quite different.
Yes.
I know I'm taking long. I'm going to hurry up. I've had some questions around population and growth asked of me and in the Brampton area. And I don't know if you have those numbers there, but what is the projected job growth or population growth for that area with the proposed plan for intensification?
Well, that's kind of...
Through the chair, I know there are numbers identified even in 2040 vision. They're specifically identified. I don't know those numbers off the top of my head, to be honest, but we can look them up and get back to you with them.
Okay. So I think it's around 385,000 people for the whole of Brampton, but Brampton, maybe we can get those numbers for Brampton. That would be helpful for us to know, because the question often asked is, where is everybody going to live? And we get dealt questions all the time about the basement apartments and the increased parking on our streets. So we have to balance out what is happening in the residential areas compared to these areas for intensification, and to have the ability to place larger high-rises in areas that are more appropriate for it. Because how many basement apartments do we have registered so far? Do we have that number exactly?
Through the chair, it's over 3,000, and as far as the Brampton 2040 vision, I just quickly looked it up. So in the Brampton area, it's identifying additional population of 50,000 and 24,000 jobs. So that's not just the Bramalea City Center site, but the broader Bramalea area.
Right, so 50,000 more people in this area and 24,000 jobs. So we're destined to have some significant growth, and we have to find a place to put everyone. So it's a hard decision to make. I know I love Bramalea, and Bramalea has been known for such a quiet, neighborhood and connected communities. Everything is so, you really do get a sense of feeling like you're in a tight-knit community in Bramalea. But it's just not like the direction that the city is growing. And so we have to look at finding the best way. I look forward to the meeting that you're going to have, and I think that's the best thing we can do, just to help so that we all understand what's happening. But yeah, I'm done. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Go Bramalea, go. Councillor Fortini.
Yeah, thank you. Just quickly, I talked to legal, so I only need a motion. I will not need one, so I'm gonna wait for the meeting, Colin, and we have to have it done within the next 2 weeks. As you know, there's an appeal process as a council this Wednesday, and we want them to wait and wait, and then it's too late. So I give my commitment on that.
Okay, so I think that's something you, on the side, the respective area councillors can certainly meet
I'll wait
with
for your
them.
email.
That's fine. Okay, so we have a report, recommendation report. Councillor Fortini would like to move it. Let's say Councillor Fortini and Councillor Williams both move the report. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. And can I get a motion to receive the delegations? Councillor Williams, all in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. We now go on to item, and the attached correspondence 13.1. Let's move by Councillor Vicente. He's been quiet today. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Now we go on to item 5.2, which corresponds with item 11.1, and it's a delegation added by Councillor Vicente. And sorry, my apologies. Can you? Yep, Councillor Vicente.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We deferred this item to tonight's meeting to allow the owners of the property an opportunity, if they so wished, to speak tonight to members of committee. I believe that they are here. I see them in front of us here. So if you'd like to come and speak to this designation proposal, you're welcome to.
Hi, good evening. My name is Philomena Petrelli, and I'm one of the owners at 9393 McLaughlin Road, which is a home that's on your heritage or that you're planning to designate heritage. So I spoke to Paul and Rowena a while back. I discussed some of the issues that we're having with that house there. Right now it's currently boarded up because there's nobody living there. There's no utilities, nothing there. And I just wanted to make sure, tell all the councillors the problems that we have encountered with that house. And we've been in contact with Cassandra Jenkins also about this, but there's a lot of issues there because of the location of the house, issues that are hazardous, that the house is being broken into constantly because of the location. Peel Police is currently patrolling that house. We had to sign with them to make sure that they can go and patrol it because there was an incident last year where they found a couple of people in the basement that they were looking for. Anyway, so my concern with that house is that, yeah, I understand it's a mud brick house and it's 1 out of 13 in Ontario, according to Cassandra. I do understand that, but there's also a lot of risks because of the location of that home. Right now, there's nobody living in it. If it's designated heritage and we find no buyers for this property, it's just going to sit there the way it is. Is that really what City of Brampton wants? Just for this house to sit there and not do anything and pose a risk? Because like I said, because of its location, it's out of, it's pretty much in an area where there's no other houses close by. So people are just, going in there, putting up tents. We can't control that. So I'd just like to state,
For those who are leaving chambers, we have a delegation in progress. I would ask you, please leave immediately and please be respectful of someone who's delegating. Thank you. Go ahead again.
So we just like the counselors to be aware of all these issues before they, designated heritage, and that's all I wanted to say. It's just a sad situation that we own this property, and when we purchased it, it was purchased for a reason behind it, hopefully that we could, put the property for sale and have it developed. But a lot of offers that we've had on it, they've been stopped because of the house there. Because their first question is, well, what do you plan to do with this house? Well, we're not interested in the house. We're interested in the land. We want to develop the land. But we've got this house sitting there, and we're stuck. And we just don't think it's fair to the owners to own this property, but we're not in charge of it. The city is in charge of it. Do you really think that's fair? And because of I can pull up a lot of police reports of people, of the police going there. And now they're actually patrolling that house because of the hazard. So we're paying police officers to go and patrol this house that the city wants to designate. So I just wanted the councilors to be aware of all these issues that are happening there before they make the decision to designate this house.
Okay. Thank you.
And Paul and Rowena have been in this house, or I'm sorry, not Rowena, Paul has. Paul Vincent has, he's more familiar with a lot of the problems.
And I see him on the board, so we wait with anticipation on what he will say. Thank
Sure.
you. Councilor Vicente.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I want members of council to know that I would like to move the recommendation under 11.1. But I wanted members of council to hear what Councilor Sanchez and I have been hearing in terms of the challenges that when you have a property like this, which by all means is worthy of designation, but it creates a kind of block or some kind of obstacle, whether perceived or real, towards what the future outcome of the overall property may be. We've seen situations where houses that are designated sit and essentially fall to neglect. And that is something that both Councilor Sanchez and I don't want to see happen here. This area, this house and this property is in our wards. It is a beautiful property. It does have potential. But for some reason, and for reasons that are difficult even for myself to explain, it just hasn't marketed itself well, even as a listed heritage property. And once it's a designated heritage property, then the responsibility of the owners increases even more so. And so we've had some conversations with planning staff about what it is that the city can do, given that we are the ones who are moving to protect the property, to save it and to make sure that something that is as important as this house certainly is. And I did have the opportunity to walk through the house. I'm not a full expert, but I know a few things about old houses. I own 2 of them. And I think that this property is very much salvageable. I think that in the right hands of the right people, it can be completely renovated and could be a beautiful example of heritage architecture here in the city of Brampton. But I would like to perhaps give staff an opportunity to explain what kind of ideas they may have had or what they see are the challenges and what are the opportunities for this parcel as a whole and how it might be integrated into another plan, but also keep this house as part of that.
Through the chair, it's important to note that heritage staff are supportive of the adaptive uses of the house, as well as the development of the whole site itself. And so we would be happy to work with any future potential owners or buyers of the property to sit down with them and explain how that house could be adapted and reused into a development proposal. And I'll let Cassandra maybe speak a little bit more to that.
So through you, Mr. Chair, as you all know, it's been clearly communicated to you that this house has potential. Adaptive reuse and development are one of the ways that we actually breathe new life into buildings. And so as heritage staff, when a development opportunity comes along, we look for those buildings to be integrated. And we have many great examples, including the delegate who came before Planning Committee at the last meeting, Paul Gill, who owns a property that's now 1 Boracay, which was 11285 Credit View Road. And for those of you who don't know the history of that property, actually suffered a fire at one point. And Paul Vender put a whole lot of hard work and effort into restoring that building. It's now a landmark in its community. And he gets to share the story of how that building came back to life with all the people who live there. And heritage staff are confident that there will be somebody who comes along with a similar idea for this property. It's just the right timing. The site does have some restrictions, but I wouldn't say that the designation is one of them. Designation is not meant to stop development. It's meant to manage change so that cultural heritage value is conserved for the benefit of the public and our future generations. And so it may be the zoning that actually has more of an indication of what the barriers are for this property than the heritage building itself. And in that regard, there are still a number of uses that can be facilitated at the site. And we've detailed a memo, which if any of the councillors haven't received it yet, we'd be happy to share it with you regarding our ideas for the property. It was put together by development and policy and heritage staff all together. And we want to be able to work with the property owners to be able to find a new life for this house. So unfortunately, vacant buildings and the risks that come with that is a problem that, you know, in other words, plagues buildings across Ontario, and just happens that some of them are heritage buildings. And I don't think it's the fact that it is a heritage building that's causing this. I think that it's probably a number of different factors together, but we look forward to working with anybody who would be willing to step up and buy the property. And we look forward to the adaptive reuse possibilities that may be put forward.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. I have a few more questions. So when you mentioned that the current zoning of the property may in fact be the issue, can staff explain what the current zoning is and what it is that can be done to improve that situation so that this house has a future?
Through the chair, currently it's zone industrial. So some of the uses are manufacturing, cleaning, packaging, processing, repairing, or assembly of goods, foods, or materials within an enclosed building, including a motor vehicle repair shop, but excluding a motor vehicle body shop. Also a printing establishment, a warehouse, a parking lot. Non-industrial uses include a radio or television broadcasting and transmission establishment, a furniture and appliance store, a recreational facility or structure, a community club, an animal hospital, a place of worship, and there's accessory uses as well to that.
In the opinion of staff and given the official plan of the city through you, Chair, what would be the best use of this property in your opinion?
Well, it's my understanding that it did not go through a municipal comprehensive review in 2016, so the current industrial zoning, but that doesn't preclude us having another look at it to see if, in fact, that is the best use and whether or not that is really the constraint. There is a rail constraint that creates a barrier. There's significant natural heritage system as part of the property, which really reduces I think it's 11 acres down to maybe about 4 acres, as well as access issues. So they're all challenges, but certainly anybody that comes forward, we'd be happy to sit down with them and see what we could do.
Thank you. Is there anything that the current owners could do to rezone the property, and what are their options working together with you now?
Well, in terms of rezoning, it would have to go through a municipal comprehensive review if it was going to change from industrial to some other type of use, whether it's residential or commercial, that type of thing. So, but again, we'd be happy to, if they had a planner, we'd be happy to sit down with them and just work through what those options could look like.
So through you, Mr. Chair, and to the delegates, I'm wondering if these answers that staff have provided here today give you some sense of what is possible and what it is that you do have the power to do.
Well, personally, what we have the power to do, yeah, we can sit down with, but we've got to hire planners and, all sorts of people to, you know, we gotta spend out a lot of money, which is, you know, finances that we don't have to do all this. We'd like to take this parcel and sell it to somebody. But, you know, as soon as any offer, we've gone through quite a few offers, as soon as it comes to the city and they, you know, say, okay, now it's designated, there's this house there. What do we do with this house that you've got to spend maybe $500,000 to, you know, and what are we going to do with it? When there's, you know, maybe 5 or 6 acres that are usable. Like, it just doesn't make sense to have this house sitting there the way it is right now. It's been like this for, what, the last, well, since maybe 6, 7 years. It's just sitting there, and it's posing a threat to people. People can do, you know, until this thing comes along, okay, yeah, we can do this with this house. How long is that going to be? Another 5, 10 years down the road? And it's just going to sit there. What if it collapses? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's what I'm thinking. Like, nothing's going to be done to this house right now. It's just going to sit there, and it's going to keep getting, you know, worse, unless, you know, we find somebody that will purchase it and spend the money that it needs. So that's my concern. It's just going to sit there. So what use is it to have it designated? I mean, you know, why doesn't the city just come up and take it? They can have it for free and put it somewhere else. Can you do that? Can you do that, Cassandra? No.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the house is mud brick, and unfortunately, in this case, it actually can't be moved because it's mud brick.
Yeah, so we can't move it, we can't fix it, it's going to sit there, and people are going to walk through it back and forth, police are going to patrol it, and nothing's going to happen to this house. But it's a mud brick house, so I know we have to preserve our heritage house, but there's got to be, you know, there's got to be a line where you say, okay, this makes sense or that makes sense. Like, you can't just, oh, because it's this, it's got to stay, sort of thing. Not unless you're going to do something with it. Like, can the city afford to, you know, fix some of it up? Like, how many heritage homes are there in Brampton that the city can't even deal with all of them? So that's just my concern there.
Thank you, Councilor Vicente.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Philemon, I just want to thank you for coming here to state your case.
No problem. Thank you for
I think it's important for
giving
members
me
of
the
council
opportunity to express my views anyway.
Right. And I think you've heard a renewed commitment from staff that they are willing to work with you or with anyone else who may own this property to see it have a viable future and for this house to be restored. So that's, I think, the message that we heard loud and clear here today. And that's some of my questions, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Woolens.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Thanks for coming in. My questions are more for staff. There are a lot of restrictions on that property aside from the heritage designation or listing. I know that access into the site is a big concern because it's fairly close to the tracks. I know that there is a restriction on the proximity to the CN tracks. They've expanded that now. I think it's 300 meters, is it not?
Through you, Mr. Chair, 30 meters, and the house is actually within that area.
The house is within the 30 meters, okay. So there are restrictions, but I do know, and I'm glad that Richard brought that up. I know that, I think it was prior to any of us being on council, that they did look at that for a Western city facility for a animal services building, to expand the animal services, and I know that you did say that it was listed under that. So I'm in total agreement we should try to save this house because of the history behind it. It's the original Fletcher's homestead that Fletcher's Creek in that area is named after. So I think we should work with the residents at Peter's Greenhouse there to try and come to a solution. Maybe there's a way we can come around where we can get this house sort of taken under the city and try and repurpose it, reuse it, and keep the designation, work with our Heritage Board to keep the designation, and allow to free up the remainder of that parcel and work with them access on how we can get maybe to the north of our property. We've got our, I think it's Fred Klein Park there, that maybe there's a way we can provide access and maybe take some of the conservation land, the designated land that falls under the natural heritage, maybe get some of that back, that we can at least salvage some of their property to get them, take the burden off of their aspects of them having this heritage building within their land, and maybe repurpose it, because I know that Mr. Willoughby up there would love to see the property be repurposed, because it is so I've got a little note here that from Council President, maybe we can draft up a motion or something to, do we need a motion, or would it just be more of a direction for staff to continue to work with the owners of the property? I know there is some, she's absolutely right, I do know some people that have looked at the property and they have, not necessarily because of the designation, but there is a lot of other issues there, so maybe if we can alleviate the designation part and help them on the other part, maybe we can come up with a solution on what we can do on this property, because it is, I know the property quite well, I've frequented the greenhouse myself quite often, so it would be nice to see if we can do something there to sort of come to consensus for both parties, so.
So through the chair, I don't think we need a motion. Your intention is quite clear, and we are committed to, as we said, to working with either the owner or future owners.
Because regardless of what happens here tonight, if we don't approve the designation, it's still got to go to the Ontario Conservation Board anyway, right? And they're more than likely going to say, you got to designate it, so I think it's better that we, rather than getting a fist fight with the owners, we might as well, let's work together and make sure the house is saved, and then let's worry about the rest of the property.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Santos.
Thank you, through you, Chair, and thank you, Philomena, for coming in to delegate today. After we met with you around the kitchen table of the house on the property, we did meet with staff who shared with us happily that communication has been happening over the years in lead up to today. So you were trying, I guess, to clarify the status of the heritage building in years past. And staff shared with us some of the communication beforehand. What's amazing is that today you came in to delegate, and now we're presenting from staff with you some possible solutions to move forward. So I think as this is now going to be designated heritage, you do have a team of people here at the city who want to preserve that heritage building and are willing to work with you to find the solutions to move forward, and hopefully at a fast pace, so that we can see that property be more than what it is right now. So I just wanted to share that, and thank you. And please, 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 let's all find a way to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So Councilor Vicente, you'd like to move the recommendation, here's your word, recommendation, HB 004, 2020. Is that correct? So moved by Councilor Vicente, all in favor? Carried, thank you. We now go on. Oh, and motion to receive delegation moved by Councilor Santos. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Now we go on to 5.2. So it's in consent. 7.2 consent. 7.3 is in consent. Minutes are consent. 8.2 is in consent. There's no referred matters. No deferred matters. And we go now on. Yep, we go on to council question period. Are there any questions from members of the committee? No. Public question period. Are there any folks who would like to come on down? Please come on down, state your name for the public record.
Hello, my name is Sylvia. So I saw the item from Hanover and then also talk of the Heritage Committee tonight. So unlike fences, the original plan for Bramalea didn't include fences. It was actually designed to be open. Does staff have what was the original intention when Bramalea was designed to look back at? Because we have our modern standards now, but also what was the intention of the community? It's like Bramalea is coming up on 50 years. The city center, I believe, opened in 1973. So we may need to start looking at this stuff. So the Heritage Committee it falls under the Planning Committee. So I'm wondering what kind of reviews are being done so that when we're doing our design reviews, we're looking at what was intended. Have we actually studied how Bramalea was designed? Because a huge chunk of it's an intensification corridor where we're going to put a BRT through it. So it's probably a good idea to know what was actually intended for it so we can try to make any intensification fit with the character of it, because tonight, there was a proposal to add intensification right there. It's that section right there was, as part of the original plan, was to have high rises in that section. So are we actually looking at like that kind of stuff when considering proposals?
Yeah, and I appreciate the rhetorical question. I assume that's obvious. I think part of good planning staff's daily work. Certainly, we look at our decisions and look at what the intention was and where the city goes. And I'm not sure Councilor Fortini would like to be on the board, but our planning staff. So the answer would be yes, they do. And I'll pass it over to Councilor Fortini as one of the area councilors.
So you're talking about Bramaley Road. Let's talk about every other road facing the backyards. They all have fences. Why do we put fences in the backyards? And a lot of them are city properties. Sound walls, fences, is to protect kids and animals. So it's one thing going on an open park. It's one thing going on a private property. It's still safety for kids. But also, why do we need these walls? Why do we need city fences in the back?
Sure. Okay, thank you, Councilor Fortini, but thank you.
I've never seen any indication there's actually been a review or collection of what was the original plan when Bramaley was designed.
So what we can do is, the planning staff, if you take that question under review, we do have your contact, and certainly someone could reach out to you and have a conversation about that. Thank you very much. If there's no further questions from the public, so we have no closed session on tonight's agenda. And adjournment. Thank you, members. Our next committee meeting is scheduled for March 23rd at 1 p.m. May I have a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting? Councilor Bowman, all in favor? Carried. And thank you, and have yourselves a good evening.